Good morning, everyone. Welcome to NCEDA's Market Forecast webinar led by Pat Riley, President and CEO of Allen Tate Companies. Today's webinar will provide an overview of the fast change in residential landscape, how to navigate the new normal, and what we can expect short-term and long-term in the market. The headlines are not telling the real story, but our webinar today should provide insights for all of you. I'm Andre Lennon, Principal at CEC in Charlotte, Vice Chair of the NCEDA Professional Development Committee, and an NCEDA board member. Before starting the program, I'd like to thank NCEDA's annual sponsors whose logos you'll see on the screen now. These companies and organizations support every component of the NCEDA's expansive mission and our growing body of programs. We thank all of these sponsors for their generous support. Webinars that benefit our membership like this one result from their support. Now I'm pleased to introduce my fellow NCEDA member, Rachel Brumfield with Allen Tate Relocation, who will introduce our presenter.
Thank you, Andre. Good morning, and thank you for joining us. It's my pleasure to introduce Pat Riley, President of the Allen Tate family of companies. Pat has been in the real estate business since 1972 and has been with Allen Tate since 1992, guiding all aspects of the 66-year-old company as the region's industry leader, which delivers exceptional real estate and homeownership services to buyers, sellers, and homeowners from offices throughout North and South Carolina. Pat is widely recognized as a visionary leader in the real estate industry. He is a past board chair of the leading real estate companies of the world, a global network of 550 independent real estate firms in 70 countries. Pat's service to the community spans his 31-year tenure with Allen Tate. He's had the honor to chair numerous civic boards in Charlotte, including the Charlotte Chamber, Arts and Science Council, and the Charlotte Center City Partners. Currently, Pat serves on the Charlotte Executive Leadership Council and the Board of Directors for Best NC, a nonprofit coalition committed to improving public education. At Allen Tate, Pat champions Tate Cares, a combined giving initiative that supports public education, arts, culture, and history, and United Way. More than $5.78 million has been raised for Tate Cares in the past 25 years. Earlier this year, he received the Most Outstanding CEO Lifetime Achievement Award from the Charlotte Business Journal. Pat, thank you for being here with us, and we look forward to the great information that you have to share.
Good morning, each and every one of you. Thank you for taking time to come out today and try to get a handle on what's happening in the residential real estate world. Some of you I've got to visit with up in Asheville at the last meeting, and for you, believe it or not, a lot of things have happened since that few short months ago. I'm going to break today's segment into some sections. And as you heard, do me a favor and try to jog down a question that you might have in a particular segment. So in the end, I can answer. If we don't have enough time, you'll get an email so that you can email me and I'll try to help you. First and foremost, I don't have many answers. Nobody has the answers today because of so much going on. But I'm going to say a separate category up top, a heading. The umbrella is that we are suffering from a paralysis of the analysis in the residential world today. Nationwide, homeowners are in place, and bottom line is they are paralyzed, and much because they don't have answers, and even if they do have answers, they're stuck. And we're going to talk about why they're stuck and how we try to move it forward. We also have to understand that, believe it or not, a good house will sell in days, not months. A good house priced right, in good condition, will sell, despite what you read and hear, will sell in days versus historic 3 months or 6 months. Still, a good house will sell in today. The last big umbrella topic that is for sure is my daddy says never say never, but 2020 and 21 will go down in history as the best 2 residential housing years ever. My dad said never say never, but I'm going to sit here and say in my lifetime, we will not see what happened in 2021. And it was also brought to you by something that probably, hopefully, please will never happen again, as that's the pandemic. We are the one of a couple industries that came out of COVID absolutely on fire. People spent time in their homes and they said, boy, we got to fix this up, or we do need to extend that dream and move to the next level, whether it's upgrade or downsize, or maybe let's buy that secondary home so we have a place to go and a little place where we can go and be away from the world. So those things together fueled 2020 and 21. And I don't think we'll see in history those kind of residential numbers ever again. So that being said, I'm going to share the screen and I'm going to work on the first category here. I'm going to break it down into the first one is foreclosures and risky loans. And are we going to get back into that awful 2007? Second thing I want to talk about, inflation and appreciation. In the world out there, the feds and everybody's trying to control inflation, reel it in. In our world, it's appreciation. Then we're going to talk about recessions versus history. Then we're going to talk about inventory. The biggest challenge we have today is we don't have anything to sell. The breadbasket's empty. And how are we going to increase inventory? Because that right now is huge. And it is a big piece of the puzzle. And then we're going to talk about mortgage rates, favorite topic of the day, mortgage rates. Then we're going to talk about the home buying cycle and first home buyers and renters. And then we're going to wind up with luxury. I would have said to you that North Carolina is not a luxury destination. That means nobody wakes up one day and says somewhere in America that I'm going to buy a $3, $4, $5 million house in North Carolina. We are a self-made wealth. And we have a couple folks here that have following families from other parts of the country coming here. And COVID sped that up a little bit because people said, I can get out of Dodge and I'm going to come and put a secondary home here. But last but not least, the reality. The reality is that I'm going to say it right now, Asheville and Highlands from the Tennessee, Atlanta, Georgia markets, Florida is being fed as luxury, and Asheville is being fed right now from the rest of the world. We have 70 offices in the Carolinas, North and South Carolina, 70 offices. And when I talk about a stat, I'll be referencing those 70 offices, and they're from little towns to the now Asheville's and Highlands and places where we do work. Okay, I'm going to share the screen and we'll get started here. Thumbs up if you see it. All right. What we read, what's happening. Bottom line is there's a lot of mistrust out there. There's a lot of untruths out there. There's a lot of sensationalism out there. Bottom line is that's what sells. That's what people respond to. And we all now have this little minute by minute, second by second information from all over the world. And we have a lot of people that are speaking into that whole without authority, without any reason to be able to say what they say. So we're going to have uncertainty for sure. We're in a pause. We were in a pause. Last year we started a pause, and we are in a pause right now. We'll talk about a recession in a minute, but housing, because of housing and tied to interest rates and tied to a lot of other things, housing is the first one in and the first one out. And many parts of the country, housing is in a recession, even though the world doesn't want to say the word. We are in many parts of the country into the beginning of a recession. We'll talk about that in a minute. What we're going to talk about first is a bubble, because you're reading a lot of folks that remember the last situation where housing was really affected, and that was the reality of risky loans. We were lending money to people who shouldn't really have a mortgage. We were trying to raise the home ownership in America. Hang on a second. sorry, all the helicopter money that has been poured in because of COVID, that money poured in, pouring in, pouring in. All of a sudden, we're seeing now that money's being used up, and we're seeing credit cards return up to high levels. We're seeing people borrow, but we have to remember that what has happened with lack of inventory is equity. Everybody in Charlotte just got their recent assessment this week. Oh my goodness, we love to see how our homes appreciated, but the assessment bills come out this week, and I know my son's gasping for air. His home doubled in value. So when we talk about this versus 2007, we're not lending to folks that don't have the ability to lend back. If they own a home, they have appreciation. They have appreciation. It is a hedge against inflation, and the equity buildup over the last couple of years has been off the chart. Last year, for 21,000 homes we sold in 2020, or 21 was 13.3% appreciation average from all those communities for those 21,000. That's 7 years of appreciation here in the Carolinas, over 7%. Now, every neighborhood's different. One neighborhood might appreciate 20 and another with 3, but the reality is we have equity. So there is nothing out there that shows distressed property issues. They refinance, they restructure the loan. It is not going to be the issue that we had before. So let's talk about that bubble. It's a supply and demand issue. What's causing appreciation is the supply and demand issue. Okay, foreclosure crisis is 0%, despite what you read. Unemployment projections, I have our Clemson economists come up and talk to us every February. And what we did during COVID is we spent a lot of money on goods and things. And that's why the supply lines were challenged. We bought a lot of stuff, but we stopped services, travel, entertainment, conventions. Okay, so now all of a sudden that's flipping back to normal. Personal consumption is going to services now instead of some of those goods that we purchased during those times. Disposable income. When we talk about disposable income, yes, our salaries aren't keeping up with inflation. But the reality is people do have money. There's never been more money sitting on the sidelines than now. And there's never been an opportunity to work if you want to work any more than now. We and unfortunately, the folks that the 35 to 44, when you talk about engagement and getting back to work, as all of our companies are dealing with today, getting people focused on some of you can work at home and do it effectively, and some of you aren't effective at home because COVID was not an experiment for working at home because the distractions weren't there, and all the distractions are back. So all companies are resizing, reestablishing themselves. Many companies, as you know, are relocating and they're downsizing, they're right sizing. They know who can work at home or what job can work at home and who can't, and we're going to right size and get out of Dodge and move south and enjoy what we always wanted to do in the first place. As you know, I wake up every morning and say I'm blessed to be in North Carolina. Bottom line is in-migration covers up for a lot of issues. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing, unless you're trying to buy a home, especially as a first home buyer under 500,000. So everybody's asking, bubble, 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 bubble. Can we keep this up? I told you 13.3 for 21. Guess what 22 was for our 21,000 houses? 13.4. So I said it was going to go down to 10. Since World War II, the average appreciation rate in America was about 3.5, and we were happy with that. We've been spoiled, and we've been spoiled more here in the Carolinas because of in-migration. So what you hear in the headlines, every headline, even in Charlotte and Raleigh and Asheville, houses are depreciating. No, you're not. All it means is your home isn't appreciating as much as it did in previous years. I just told you 13.3. I think 10 this year. Even if it's 7, even if it's 6 this year, the reality is it's still much better than historic appreciation rates. Homes don't depreciate. Only 1 year in history did they appreciate, and that was the thick of the 2007-8 recession. No, you're not going to get what your neighbor got. And that's what the public, when we talk about paralysis analysis, that's what the public's frustrated with. I want to get what my neighbor got. That ship sailed. Okay, that doesn't mean your house won't sell in days and weeks. It just means you're probably not going to get what your neighbor got. Okay, that ship has sailed. Inflation as far as housing is inflation, and as far as the Carolinas is even greater than the inflation rates. So it's one of the leading inflation challenges. But we're part of a greater private company, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, Indiana. No, they're not appreciating 13%. Trust me, if they do 3%, they will be lucky. So the outlook is improved. We'll talk about the Fed and we'll talk about interest rates. They want to do a soft pedal stop. They don't want an emergency brake stop. And that's that wrestle they're doing. How can we get a soft spot? I'm on the Fed call every quarter. And Pat, what's it going to take to be a soft stop versus a shutdown? Well, the reality is, we'll talk about that in a minute, but inflation is coming down a bit, and the Feds want to keep it that way. At the same time, we're in an election cycle, which is a dicey, combination. All right. How much lower will inflation have to go before they take off the brakes? And that's what we watch, and that's what the stock market watches every month, just what we watched yesterday, this week. So when we talk about national price performance, we call it normalizing. House appreciation is normalizing back to the historic levels. So when you go from 13 down to 10, it's like going from 100 miles an hour down to 50, and the world thinks the sky is falling. It's not. Just like interest rates. People are getting used to 6. They will. Every month that goes by, we see a tick up where people are saying, you know what? Date the rate, marry the dream house. Date the rate, because guess what? If they go down, guess what? We can refinance. All right. So forecasts, as you see out there nationally, coming down to historic levels. We got to talk about that thing called recession, because that's everybody's talking about recession now, and that paralyzes people. That paralyzes people, just like the bank announcements this week. You know, oh my goodness, what's going to happen with my bank? Is my money safe? What it does is all this clutter paralyzes people, and it hunkers them down, and it helps them not make a decision that they want to make. The reality is a recession. Historically, I came into this business in 71. We had a recession in 70, 80, 90, 2000, every 10 years, 2000. And then we had the big one in 2007. And everybody remembers that one. They don't remember the other ones that were about 18 months, 24 months most, where they raise interest rates to slow the economy down. And then they take the gas back off. So my daddy said, never, never, never. I don't think interest rates will get below 4 again. We'll get used to 6. And interest rates since World War II, 7.4 average. So we're going to get back to normalizing, and we will be okay, but it's in that paralysis analysis zone that we're in. So when we talk about recessions, everybody remembers the last one. The last one was the big one. The last one for us, 5 years of half of our business went away. Talk about paralyzation, it was. So how will housing be impacted about a recession? If a mild recession comes, one of those 18 months, 24 months, because they push the pedal, guess what? Where you and I live, work, play, and pray, the nation between you and me, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Ohio, New York, New Jersey, housing is in a recession. They're down close to 32% in units, 28% in units. And I'm going to whisper to you, we're down 12, 15% in units here in the Carolinas. Bottom line is we're the first one in a recession. Nobody wants to say it's a recession. It's not a recession when your house will sell in days and much earlier than the 6-month average historic. I don't think we're in a recession, but compared to normal, housing is in somewhat of a recession. Not a deep one, but a little one. But the last time is what we remember, where we drove home ownership up. Oh my goodness, Democrats, Republicans, starting with Carter. Let's raise home ownership. That's good. And let's lend money to people who can't afford to pay it back, even if they don't have a job. Let's do it. Let's do equity lines to everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, we proved that didn't work. There's rumblings now out there, affordable housing, affordable housing, affordable housing. We got to be careful. We got to be careful. We need to put people in homes with roof over their heads, and we need to subsidize housing if they can't afford to pay back a loan. But if you can't fix the roof, you shouldn't be in a home. We should be in a subsidized housing. Bottom line is that is starting to bump, which concerns me. But we haven't done equity lines. Well, I heard a radio commercial the other day for one. We have to be careful. We have to be careful. We don't want to. The history lessons is the perfect lineup of stars was homeownership coupled with the equity market tanked. And last but not least, interest rates were historic lows. You put those three together, look out. That was the 4 or 5 year Great Recession that people remember. What we're talking about today is a 24, 18-month break that the Fed is wrestling with right now. I want to show you this. This is Tate. This is us. And really, I only want to show you two things. One is look, look at 20,257 units and look down at the bottom. Look down at the bottom of the appreciation rate of homes. We're going to talk about this as far as especially the beautiful thing if you own, but how it is really, really fouling up the cycle of the first home buyer, the second go to the third. That is all broken and probably will remain broken. Only 50% of Americans public can afford a home under 550. 21 up to 77, 21% up to 750, 14% up to $1 million, 9%, $1 million, $1.5 million, and the rest is the super luxury. Bottom line is the first home buyer, which we'll talk about, is really up against it today with interest rates going from 2 3/8 up to 6, and appreciation rate in the Carolinas at 13.3 to 15.5. You can see where that ship is pushing off from the dock very, very quickly for that first home buyer. So let's look down there at the first home buyer. Now let's look at the Great Recession. Look at that, 8, 9, 10, 11. Half of our business went away. That is something that we're not going to see. We're not going to see that again. My daddy says never say never. We're not going to see that again. So let's talk about home price appreciation. I gave you the numbers. Inventory is the #1 issue in the country, not just the Carolinas, in the country. Ours is just exacerbated because of in-migration, The biggest problem we have is new construction. We used to do 26,000, 25,000 homes in Raleigh and Charlotte. We're lucky after 5 years, 6 years in a row, only doing 11. Why? Lots of reasons. The biggest reason is growth. Being able to have the schools, be able to have the infrastructure, the sewer, the water. Right now, we're waiting for sewage plants. People are coming here in droves, and they're filling these beautiful apartment complexes. But new construction, I can't look at in any way, shape, or form to solve the issue, of supply. So take that off the table. This is America now. This is America. This is how short we are of homes out there because people are squatting at all levels. They're squatting in the first home apartments because they can't get out. And they're squatting at the end of the cycle and they're aging in place. That's why appreciation rates are what they are. A good house will sell in minutes. A good house will still have multiple offers. I'm not going to get what my neighbor got, but it'll still sell in minutes. So I've made the case that supply is the issue. Nationally, look at this. It's a huge issue that I don't have answers for. The reality is we have one of the largest generations that by now should have their second home, and they don't have their first. They don't have their first. Immigration, I will tell you that we're blessed. This proves it over and over and over again. You see those numbers better than me. Inventory wise, it's not an inventory section thing right now. All price points will sell. Adult ownership has bottomed. They want it. They want it. They want it. Our problem is boomers. We talk about new construction. The second big problem is us. We talked about that in Nashville. Boomers are the problem. We're the problem because we're aging in place. We used to downsize at 60, 61, 62, 63 because of steps. Now most homes for the last 20 years have a primary down, so steps aren't an issue. We're healthier, we're living longer, and here's what we suffer from. Number one, sticker shock. I know I should downsize, but I'm not going to pay that for that. Or two, I want to get into a long-term facility, life care facility. Some of them you have to get in healthy. Some of them you not only have to get in healthy, but some of them, bottom line is, there's sticker shock there. They're too expensive. There's not enough of them. And the stat here with boomers is 38% by 2025 are going to live with their kids. The kids didn't expect that, and mom and dad didn't expect that. I just went out on a call with one the other day. I'm suggesting that our realtors do boomer physicals every week. I may not be ready for another couple of years, but guess what? I need to get ready to get ready. I need to declutter. I went to my sister's house up in Pennsylvania, and I have to shush off stuffed animals with their 34-year-old nieces in New York City with 2 kids. Shush off their stuffed animals. I have to see their 5th grade soccer medals. Bottom line is I'm painting the wrong colors. I'm putting in granite versus quartz versus marble. I'm not keeping my home current. So when I do come time to sell, guess what? Instead of $100,000 to get out the door, it's $200,000. I was out on one that's a $3.5 million house that's going to cost $1 million to get out, and to a buyer it's going to be $1.5 million. Boomers all need to be ready, and they're not. The average downsized boomer now is 74, 75 years old. They have the largest amount of inventory that we need. They have it, they hold it. And I don't know how that's going to free up anytime soon. They hold the key, they hold the key, they hold the key, and they're living a lot longer. In America, it used to be 4 years, flip turn, 4 years, upgrade or downgrade, 4 years. It's now up to 8 with pandemic. I will say my guess is it's probably closer to 10 now instead of that historic 4 or 5. There's another problem in America is the housing stock in America is 43 years old average. That's huge. People want open floor plans. They want smart homes. Multi-generation housing is needed now. A place for mom or dad or both of them. Bottom line is our housing stock is aging, and these kids are spoiled, man. They're living in these homes that have these rentals that have doggy washes and car washes, and they have 5, 6, 100-inch TVs that they're watching all 5 games at the same time. They don't want to do sweat equity. As boomers, we grew up in our first house. We had it before we were 25, and it wasn't pretty. And that was just to get on the bandwagon. So we're going to talk about what we have to do with these renters now, these first-time buyers, to help them get ready to rent. So the biggest threat now we talk about is interest rates. Oh boy, who would have thought they would go up so quick? Bottom line is interest rate lock is the issue. When I talk to the feds, they say, Pat, what rate will cause a soft pedal instead of an emergency brake on this economy? Feds and the elected officials aren't supposed to be working together. It's supposed to be a separate. But bottom line, in an election cycle, no sitting administration wants a recession. I don't care if it's a short one. They don't want it during their time in those seats. I said, I don't know. I think it'll be 7. 7 probably will cause a recession from where it was 2 3/8. I said, but I don't know because of interest rate lock. What do you mean interest rate lock? Well, 64% of Americans have interest rates under 4, which is another reason people are hunkered down, and 34 have them under 3. So that's called interest rate lock, and no human being has dealt with that before. So I don't know. I tell the story of a young couple that called me out, my daughter's lacrosse coach, and said, we need to have breakfast. I said, I haven't sold a house in 79. I have 2,100 pros, but I haven't. So you don't want me? They said, no, we want to talk to you. I sat with them and they said, we have a house in NODA that we restored. It's appreciating probably 12, 15% a year. I have an interest rate of 2 3/8, and I have to go home to Syracuse. I have aging parents. I have to go home to Syracuse with my 2 kids. I sat down and I said, this is simple. On the financial side, you're going to get great rent, and your interest rate's 2 3/8. If you go up there and buy a house now, your rate, you're probably going to get 6% or 5.5 for 30 years. And your appreciation in Syracuse is going to probably be, for a while, nothing, maybe 2%. I said, financially, go up there and rent. They don't want to raise their kids without a white picket fence and not home ownership. Now I said, let's go over to the emotional side. Renting that house down here, you're a long way away. Even if with the professional management company, they will not treat that house the way you treated it, with the love that you treated with the in and out. But guess what? What I'm trying to say here is everybody who has a low interest rate, it's a decision. Whether you want to move and follow your dream or not, giving up a 2 3/8 or 3 1/4 to know that it'll never happen again, it's a decision. It's a decision. It's a decision. I do believe, since the rates jumped, that we are now into the period of we're getting over the initial so that now I'm accepting reality and I can move on. Some of us in this call remember they had an interest rate of 13 or 14 or 15 or 16. We got over it. We do blends, we do buy downs. Right now we're doing all kinds of mortgage opportunities to keep the rates consistent, and again, refinance if something happens that they do go down. So we talked about historic by decade, and we talked about 7% being historically average across the board. We have all kinds of projections out there from the folks, but it looks like that 5 to 6 range. I think if they get to 7, it'll cause the R. But as I said, housing is already in a little bit of paralysis of the analysis because of the rate plus lack of inventory. We talked about these guys, the rents. Oh my goodness, I say that every one of our realtors needs to sit with a renter and set some goals. I talked to 130 young people, all average from 26 to 35, and when you tell them that they're going to spend $100,000 worth of rent before they get in their first home, that's a gut-wrenching stat. That's a gut-wrenching stat. So we got to help them set budgets. We have to keep them out of the bar with a wine glass, $15 at work every day. We have to set goals for them. We have to talk about sweat equity and talk about the advantage of sweat equity and what that means versus not. They want to live and take over where their parents left them, and it's not real. It's not realistic. And then last but not least, we may have to help them talk to mom, dad, Uncle Iggy, to maybe advance some of that wealth, $25 trillion, which is going to change hands in the next 10 years. Maybe advance some of that wealth, or even just co-sign to get them onto the onto the American dream. They want it. They want it. They want it. They want it bad, but not bad enough to do sweat equity, and maybe not bad enough to ask mom for help. They are determined. And what accelerates that is not marriage so much as the baby. Then it's schools. Then it's schools. That's a whole other subject. Working at Best NC and economic development. For us in North Carolina and South Carolina, we got to pay attention. Best NC is working very, very hard at school reform at the state level. The chamber always has the school reform on its agenda, but we had to form another nonprofit that covers both sides of the aisle for school reform, and we're making headway because economic growth will follow the school report card. Indian Land, South Carolina used to be so envious of Fort Mill. And I will tell you, go look at the new Indian Land High School. Indian Land got their act together, and they too shall come. Gastonia is working hard now too on that. So affordability is an issue absolutely for everyone, but especially that 50% of the home buying public under $500,000, it's an issue out there. Rent increase is much greater than inflation, and inflation enough is so high. It's hard. It's very, very, very hard. And they're at that time now where they're late to the dance. They're late getting married. They're late having kids, and they're late getting into their first home. They're traveling more. We talked about on the call preference that they're doing 5 destination weddings. Some of their priorities are different than ours, but if they're talking about long time raising of wealth, a home is the solace for old age. It's forced savings. You pay that mortgage down. You don't do equity lines. It's your future. It's your rain hat and coat to protect you during those times that you need it. Children, as I said, is the motivation to get out of those beautiful rentals and get busy. So homes are less affordable, but they're not unaffordable. As we talked about today, we do adjustable rate mortgage. Sellers are buying down the rates. They're buying down rates because that today is important to some people, especially in that first home market, more than something else. Let's talk a little bit about us, our Southern advantage. Our Southern advantage today is the world. The world loves what we have. The quaint towns, the mountains and the beaches and the higher education and the beautiful, beautiful construction. It's the temperate climate with 236 days of sun, but yet we have seasons. The cost of living, the per capita income, the tech centers being built all over North Carolina, the high-tech centers, the innovation centers that are being built all over, the medical systems, not only for the primary, the secondary, the medical systems in Asheville and Highlands, keeping up, and the ability then to, if you have to, get to the inner core medical systems, second to none. We got it all. Cost of living, taxes. There's not one realtor in North Carolina that has heard from a buyer in the back seat of their car, gosh, taxes are high here. They're not. They're not. Compared to America, there's not a peep on taxes, even though no politician will run on raising taxes. We got it going for us. We got it going for us. We got to appreciate that. Let's talk about luxury for a minute. It's, as I said, percentage-wise, maybe 15% of the market. And but I will tell you, when you talk about luxury, by luxury I'm talking about $1 million and up. In some communities it might be 800,000 and up. But if you take $1 million and up, I will say for the first time since we joined forces and merged with Beverly Hanks up in the mountains. And I went into there looking at that as a secondary housing market. And post-recession, the mountains and beaches, post the big recession, the mountains and beaches were 18 months behind where the recovery was for everybody else. And they remained 18 to 24 months behind. But guess what? Post-COVID, leaped ahead. In Asheville, it's mind-boggling. I know of at least 45 $4 to $10 million homes under construction in 3 communities up there that half are secondary housing and half are primary. And these are CEOs from all over the world. This is the CEO of Sharp Vacuum Cleaner. So bottom line is, I'm going to say, I have to admit I was wrong. Asheville, and now that we're in the Highlands, we are a luxury destination finally in the Carolinas. The mountains and beaches are back in spades. Yes, COVID fueled it, Anybody who had a lot started building on it. Anybody that was building or thinking about building or building. And those of us those who owned a secondary home have seen appreciation like never before, if they did, in fact, want to liquidate. Now, that is also softening at all price points. It's softening, but a good home priced right will sell in months, not years. Okay, which used to be the case in the mountains. We talked about it. We have everything that people want, and that's not going to go away. That is our Band-Aid. That's our first aid kit for compared to Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, Indiana. That's our Band-Aid. In migration, secondary housing. However, what hurts us is the opposite of that, is lack of inventory. Because of that immigration, it takes a normalized community and it really makes it harder because homes appreciating so much more. Why did I say 10% versus 2% this year? 13.3, 21. Then it went to 15.2. And this year I'm saying maybe 10. But why is it 10 versus 3 or 4 like the rest of the country? Because of in-migration. So I'm going to open it to questions. Looking here, I covered foreclosures, risky loans. I covered recession versus history. I covered inventory. I covered first home. Oh, investors. Let me spend 1 minute on investors. Wall Street now has left. In Charlotte and Raleigh alone, we probably lost close to 8,000 to 10,000 homes post-COVID to Wall Street inventory of buying homes. The petals of coming off that rose now. Wall Street, they were buying homes by analytics from computer. If it's a Huntington model and Pulte build it, we can offer this. Wall Street found out very quickly that you need a human being. When a corporation, with you guys deal with corporations, when they move an executive, they want a broker opinion 1, a broker opinion 2, an appraisal, and an inspection. And then also probably a termite and a radon and whatever. So they don't buy a home without their eyes wide open. But all of a sudden, Wall Street, because there's so much money and I'm going to put it in real estate, and real estate's appreciating so much and rents are so high, I'm just going to buy houses all over America under 500. Well, guess what? They found out that they're overpaying, and the condition, my driveway's like this and your driveway's like that, and I live in a pig pen and you live in a pristine model. They found out you can't buy a home without human interaction. And so they opened door. Zillow got caught with a lot of inventory, lipstick on the pig that they're trying to get rid of now. But that doesn't say that investing in real estate for you and I and someone who has money versus everything in the stock market, you should have money in real estate. Why not? Especially if it's close, you can manage it and take care of it and enjoy the high rents and the appreciation. So investment is not going to go away. So I think that's it for me. I throw it out to the audience.
Yep, and thank you, Pat, for that. Yeah, we do have some time for questions, so we'll try to give this a couple minutes. If you all can enter your questions in the Q&A box, we'll give it just a few moments here. And while we wait on that, I was thinking as you were discussing, and I know you did touch on it with the school systems in the Indian land and Gastonia, and I know we kind of touched on that when we were preparing, but I was really interested in that subject as well, as far as how you see that affecting the housing market in our region and in general, the importance of the school system and their performance.
Whatever your community appreciation rate is, no matter how rural or how large or small the community is, your appreciation rate will be greater based on the school report card, period. Period, end of question, because home ownership, even if you're a boomer and you want your home to appreciate the most, I just went down the street the other day and there's signs all in the yards. Keep this community in this school zone. So the neighbors are all screaming because we move lines around, and mommies and daddies and grandparents, they know what's best for their children, and they want the best for their children. So the school report card is important. 60% of the budget comes from the state and 40% comes from local. And most people don't understand that. So I said for a future speaker, we should bring Brenda Berg in from Best NC. That's where 150 corporations in North Carolina have funded a nonprofit that's bipartisan, that absolutely can talk to our legislators exactly what is going on and not. No lobbying for it. These are facts. These are the things that are needed to change and move our schools into this century. And I'll just give one example, and then I'll stop. And that is, we only have, don't take me to the number, I think we'll have 10 districts that have adopted a new state opportunity that allows a teacher. You take Rachel over here, she's a great teacher, good parent involvement. Kids are all growing, whatever level, they love her. She's a principal, and she's a teacher, and she's just the best. Well, she doesn't want to be an administrator. But why not take the honey and let her teach 3 classes a day, and the other 3-4 classes she goes spreads her honey with a new teacher, a teacher that needs mentoring, a teacher that needs goal setting. Well, we just passed a law that allows a teacher to make as much as $10,000 more a year to be. But guess what? A lot of districts are fighting it. Tenure, the teachers, some teachers, they don't like it. We say we don't have a teachers union. We have an unofficial teachers union, and it's change. Instead of a principal having 90 people report to him, boy, they can delegate some of that head count to some great teachers that can move the needle. That's just one example. The other example we passed last year was a principal couldn't get a raise unless they moved to another school. So you have a principal who's doing good. The teachers love him. He's recruiting, he's retaining good teachers. He's moving the kids to another level. He can only get a raise if he goes to another school. That was absurd. We changed that law the other year too. So there's a lot of reform left to do. Oh, trust me, a lot. And it's all business. It's 150 corporations. Many of them are on this call today. We just have to get behind Best NC, and we have to work in all of our communities at raising the bar. We need more technical schools. I mean, the world thinks that you're not going to be successful if you don't go to college. I grew up in Pennsylvania, and half my football team showed up at 3 o'clock on the football field. But the rest of the day, they were learning things that they were passionate about, instead of sitting learning chemistry and biology and things that they don't feel any passion about. They're out there learning how to fix one of these Caterpillar or Komatsu tractors and making $100 grand to service these beautiful $2 million rigs out there. So it's a wake-up call. What parent wants to tell their child that they're not college material? Trust me, the parent and the child know it, but they have to have access to these opportunities. You got me on the soapbox now.
No, well, I so agree with that, and certainly this area, I know I'm passionate for the same. You know, with my wife being in education, we certainly hear a lot of these same input from their side as educators as well. We did have another question come in. I'll pass this to you. So do you see a slowdown of apartments? We are still seeing a lot of interest with apartments in our community.
I will say, I would have thought this would have post-COVID. See, to build an apartment complex right now, all you need to do, pre-COVID, all you had to do is rent out 60% of them, and you can flip it to a REIT, a real estate investment trust. It might even be a teacher's trust. Bottom line is, but all you had to do was rent it out 60% and the developer flips it. And now it's up to 70. But that's not going to stop with in-migration. If people can't buy houses affordability-wise or availability-wise, they're filling these. I see them every day. I'm sitting there saying, how are we filling these? Well, guess what? If 268 people are coming in a day, bottom line is they're living somewhere, and guess where they're living? And many of them are luxury today. People don't want to pay rent, but that's all they have right now because of availability.
All right.
It'll stop. It'll stop. It'll stop the minute they don't capture the rentals.
Mm-hmm.
But that I don't see anytime soon with the in-migration and the lack of supply we have.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, thank you for that, Pat. I think that is all of the questions that I am seeing, and so I think we'll move it on. But I do want to thank you again for your time. Your market forecast is always insightful in framing where things are today and for the future. I'm confident our webinar participants found the forecast helpful. I know I did.
I hope so. I hope so. Thank you for the invitation, and let's go out there and be positive. You now have some of the answers, or at least reasons why we don't have the answers. You have that. And the best thing we can do for the state of North Carolina is arm ourselves with facts, not fiction. Headlines are paralyzing out there. Most of them aren't true. They're not founded. They're talked by people that don't know what's going on. So go out there and start with your family and start with your neighbors. Let's get the word out there that things aren't what is being put out there.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Let me remind everyone too, if another question comes up that you didn't think about while we were here, send those emails in. I believe that you'll get a follow-up email from NCEDA with Pat's contact information, and you certainly can send those questions in, and he'll do his best to get answers back out to you. I want to thank our annual sponsors again for helping to make webinars like this one available. And thanks to each of you for joining us today. Watch your email for upcoming in-person and virtual professional development events, including our 2023 Legislative Day in Raleigh next week on March 29th, and our Asheville Area Network Luncheon on April 20th. Save the dates for our final product development webinar regarding legal structure and partnership models on May 2nd, and also the 2023 annual conference, June 27th through the 29th in Wilmington. Registration for these events will open up in April. Thanks again for everyone being with us. Have a great afternoon. See you later.